Today's lesson is called Native Americans of the Southwest Part 2. So we're going to be taking another look at those Native American tribes that lived in the Southwest region. Remember, this is the Southwest region, so it includes states like Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, and parts of Mexico. Last time we talked about a group of people that lived in the Southwest region called the Ancestral Pueblo. Today we're going to be learning about some of the tribes that came out of them and after them. Before we get started, let's take a look at two vocabulary words. The first one you heard yesterday in our story about Aloe, the spirit giver. It's the word Kachina. The Kachina were the ancestral spirits that the Hopi people believed in their religious system. Do you remember the way that Aloe dressed up as one of the Kachina in order to become like them in our story yesterday? Since Kachina are spirits or things, the word Kachina is a noun. Our next word is the word maintain, and the word maintain is a verb. If you maintain something, then you take care of it. So maintain means to take care of something or to keep it in good working order. So if you maintain your room, it means you take good care of it, you keep it in good condition, or you clean it a lot. Listen for these words as we get started with our read aloud today. Here are some of the important questions to listen for as we go through our read aloud today. Remember, you can print out the paper for taking notes with these questions on it, or you can just copy these questions into a journal or notebook. Your first question is describe the homes in which the Hopi lived. The second thing to listen for is just what was the Southwest region like? Think about what was the weather like, what was the landscape like, how would you describe the region? Question 3 asks what were Kachina dolls? And question 4 is your opinion. So in the read aloud, you're going to hear that the Hopi used ladders to get into their houses, and you're going to see that. And then I just want to know, would you like this? Would you like having a ladder to get into your house? And why or why not? So that is an opinion question. Drought and confrontation with other native peoples and with European explorers certainly helped to bring much change to the ancestral Pueblo settlements that had developed slowly over thousands of years in the American Southwest. The ancestral Pueblo had developed a way of life that was heavily influenced by the climate and the environment in which they lived. But this is not the end of the Pueblo story. Archaeologists believe that it is probable that the ancestral Pueblo journeyed to other areas in the region in search of the water supplies needed to maintain their crops, hoping for a more peaceful way of life. It is not known for certain why the ancestral Pueblo left their former homes, but it is known for certain that they did leave and journey to other areas in the region. They began to settle in the areas around the Rio Grande River that are now northern New Mexico, northern Arizona, central Utah, and southern Colorado. And so, once again, the native peoples of the Southwest learned how to settle and how to adapt to their immediate environment, and their culture continued to grow and change. Each year, snow fell, as it still does on the mountaintops. Rain also fell in the rivers and streams that flowed through the valleys of the lands of these native peoples. However, in arid areas, there was never enough water, and surviving in such places was a never-ending struggle. Despite such struggles, native groups continued to develop new and ingenious ways to manage their most precious resource, water. Over time, the ancestral Pueblo adopted some new customs and beliefs, and they also continued to practice their traditional ways. Out of this grew new customs, languages, religions, and forms of government. These new cultural practices developed in the deserts, mountains, and valleys of this Southwest region. Many tribes came into existence as a result of their ancestors' incredible journey across thousands of years and countless miles. Two of these tribes are called the Hopi and the Zuni. These tribes with this shared history are called Pueblo Indians. The Hopi, one such tribe born of this journey, is the group we're going to focus on today. The word Hopi means peaceful or wise. The Hopi are the descendants of the ancestral Pueblo, but interestingly, their language is not the same. The Hopi settled in the area that is now Arizona. They were organized into clans, with the mother side of a family establishing the most important family connections. Like all native peoples, the Hopi relied on their environment for all of their needs. The Hopi grew beans, squash, melons, pumpkins, and other types of gourds, cotton, and corn. Corn was the most important crop, and they learned how to grow several different kinds. Because of the dry conditions, they learned how to plant the corn deep into the ground. There, the crop could reach underground water sources and also be protected from the arid conditions above. Also, the Hopi would plant their crops at the bottom of the mesas so that after it rained, the water would run down into their fields and water their crops. The Hopi lived in houses made of stone and wooden beams. They did not use adobe clay to build houses like their ancestors did. Instead, they entered their houses through the ceiling using a ladder. Because of the environment in which they lived, they ate very little meat. But the Hopi women who ran the household knew many different ways to cook corn. Hopi people wove cloth for clothing and blankets, and they made moccasins, a type of shoe, belts, baskets, pottery, and jewelry. The Hopi were thought to be a very peaceful people. Like many other native people, and many people today, however, when they felt conflict with others, the way that they chose to show this was by giving the silent treatment, or the cold shoulder, which means they wouldn't talk to people when they were upset with them. The Hopi were also very spiritual. They believed that people were created inside the earth and emerged onto the surface through an opening. The Hopi called the small part of the opening in the ground a sipipu. They practiced what they called the Hopi way. They believed that they should be kind to each other and thoughtful toward their environment. Central to the Hopi's beliefs were ancestral spirit beings called kachinas. These kachinas were thought to be the spirits of animals, natural elements such as the wind and the rain, ancestors who left the spirit world for 6 months each year to dwell among the living, or deities. The Hopi believed that the kachinas would visit the world each year around the time of the winter solstice and would stay until the time of the summer solstice, about 6 months. The Hopi believed they needed the most help from the kachina spirits during this time because it's the harshest, coldest time of year. They could not grow crops, and it was more difficult to find animals to hunt. The number of spirits believed to visit varied from community to community. The Hopi believed that kachinas might, for example, help bring forth rain so that the earth and the crops would continue to thrive, or that kachinas might provide assistance in times of sickness and disease. In essence, the Hopi believed that in order to survive, they had to ask for help from the spirits that controlled every aspect of their world. The Hopi held festivals and ceremonies throughout the year, the most important of which were held during the time the Hopi believed that the spirits of the dead dwelt among the living. Ceremonial dances were performed by male members of the tribe. The men wore a variety of masks and special clothes to represent the various kachinas. During the ceremonial dances, they asked the gods to bring forth rain to make the crops grow. The Hopi believed that during the ceremonial dances, each man would transform into the spirit he was representing. Many of these ceremonies were held in the plazas, where some were held in the kivas. This was a tradition that had begun with the ancestral Pueblo. Kachina dolls were also very important too. They were hand-carved from cottonwood roots by men and presented to boys and girls. Each doll represented a particular spirit. The doll's face revealed what spirit it was. What spirits do you think that these dolls represent? Kachina dolls were also honored and revered as the bringers of rain. For the people in such a dry region, rain meant life. The Hopi still inhabit the southwest regions of North America, and they live throughout the United States today and even around the world. Some live without adhering to or being devoted to the traditional ways, whereas others still practice the Hopi way. They seek the aid of the Kachinas, and they live much the same way that their ancestors did, keeping these traditions. The Hopi, along with the Zuni and many other Native American groups, continue to cherish and manage the land that they've lived on for hundreds of years as their tribal journey continues.